Hey, this is Trevor Scott Barton, and I'm reading from my story, Fragments of Hilcias and Taki's Notebook. This is chapter 21. Taki was beautiful. I use that word in the sense of the old Latin phrase, esse quam videri. To be is more important than to appear to be. The essence of something is more important than the video of it. She was beautiful on the outside. She had long black hair, deep brown eyes, and dark skin against the white snow of Point Hope. She was beautiful on the inside. Her essence was a warm heart beating slowly and steadily against the Arctic cold. Her family's house was made of a yellow painted wooden slat and a red roof. It sat at the edge of the pack ice beside the Chukchi Sea. It had 4 windows, one for each side of the house. A small chimney rose slightly through the center of its ridge. Smoke from the fireplace swirled wistfully into the night sky. She sat by the fire in the front room, warming herself against the cold. She looked out over the Chukchi Sea. The moon reflected off its calm surface. Broken ice moved ever so slowly with the tide. Whales sang to each other in the deep darkness of the water. She sighed at the beauty of it all. All Inupiat children hear the story of a girl named Nuliajuk. The story goes that Nuliajuk sat at the edge of the Chukchi Sea. She stared at the icy horizon. She thought. She was silent. She waited. Many of her neighbors thought, "What is she doing? Her poor papa is a widow. He needs a son-in-law to help him. She needs to help her papa." But they were kind, thoughtful, quiet people, so they kept their thoughts to themselves. Yet day after day she thought and waited at the edge of the Chukchi Sea. She refused all of the young men her papa chose for her to marry. Many young hunters who seemed like they would become good, hard-working husbands were sent away by her. She spent her days eating the best food in their house and combing her long, beautiful hair. One day she saw a handsome hunter paddling a kayak on the water. He was wearing snow goggles to protect his eyes from the bright sun reflecting off the water. Even though his eyes were hidden, Nuliajuk knew this was the man she had been waiting for. He paddled to shore. Right then and there, Nuliajuk agreed to marry him. She joined him in his kayak, and they went to his island home. When they arrived at the island, the hunter took off his goggles. He had red eyes. He wasn't a handsome husband. He wasn't even human. He was a fulmar, a bird of the sea. Nuliajuk was horrified. How would she ever get back home? Nuliajuk's papa was worried when he arrived at their home and she wasn't there. He set out in search of her. After many days, he found her imprisoned on the fulmar's island. He waited patiently until the fulmar went out hunting. He hurried his daughter to his umiak and began the journey home. The fulmar returned and discovered his bride was missing. He was furious. Did someone steal his bride? Did she leave him for another husband? He set out over the sea searching for Nuliajuk. Soon he spotted her with her father. He flew low and demanded the father take her back to the island. The father ignored him and kept paddling for home. The fulmar flapped his wings so furiously he raised a mighty storm on the sea. It threatened to flip the tiny boat. Finally, the father felt he had no choice. In order to save himself, he threw Nuliajuk into the sea. She grabbed onto the side of the Umiak and tried to pull herself back into the boat. The fulmar continued to squawk and flap until the little Umiak was in even greater danger of overturning. Again, the father felt he had no choice. He took his knife in his hands and cut off Nuliajuk's fingers at the first joint. Her fingertips fell into the sea and transformed into seals. Still, Nuliajuk held on to the side of the Umiak. Her father cut off her fingers at the second joint. These too fell into the sea and transformed into walruses. Nuliajuk used all of her strength to hold on to the Umiak with the stubs of her fingers. The chaos from the fulmar's squawking and flapping were unbearable. The father thought the world was coming to an end. He used his knife one last time to cut off Nuliajak's fingers at their knuckles. They fell into the sea and transformed into whales. With no fingers, Nuliajuk slipped off of the side of the Umiak and under the waters of the sea. With his bride gone, the fulmar gave up and flew away. The storm stopped. The father continued his sad journey home. He found no peace. He was so distraught he drowned himself in the great waters around him. But this is not the end of the story. Nuliajuk sunk to the bottom of the sea and became the mistress of all sea mammals. She gained the power to decide when the Inupiat people could catch seals, walruses, and whales. She could give them to the people, or she could withhold them from the people. Despite her power, she lived a lonely life. Without fingers, she couldn't comb her hair. She was miserable. As her misery grew, the sea creatures would get tangled in her hair. When she was especially unhappy, either from loneliness or displeasure with the behavior of the Inupiat people, she caused fierce storms that prevented the people from hunting. It was a possibility that they could starve. In order to appease Nuliajuk, a shaman would have to go on a journey to visit her. The shaman traveled under the sea, where he would sing to her, comb her hair, and beg her to release the sea mammals. If the shaman succeeded, there would be food. If not, hunger would persist and death would come. Suddenly, Taki heard a whistle from the sea. It was the song of a bowhead whale. "There is a boy," sang the great whale, "with eyes the color of the sky and skin the color of the sand at the edge of the Atlantic Ocean. He is coming to you." "To me?"